Today we need to get into people saying that Jin and Coldplay had a reunion, and we also need to get into people saying that Chris Martin probably had an emotional reaction to Jin coming home, and then we also have RM's word about Jin trending. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave. Decide hate it or not, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. Make sure you join us fangirling on Patreon with some free content on Saturdays now, and let's go. So every time something happens that is big within the BTS community, the fan clubs and a lot of people within the community will come together to decide what to trend. And by decide, it's just really one person coming up with something and then other people jumping in it because they think it's funny or cute or whatever it is. This is just how sometimes we'll see a funny thing trend, and it's something that most of us wouldn't automatically think or trend about, but it's coming from the fan club, and then when people within the community click on the trend and see it, they realize what it's about, they tend to jump on board, and they also try to be a part of it as well. So of course, when Jin decided to leave the military and come back home, a lot of people had a lot of things to say about this and were very excited. One of the things that they trended was Daddy's home. And people just took some moments and photos that were documented of him coming out of the military, and they posted it alongside their opinion of what they feel now that he has left, as well as Jin having a live stream online and then talking about that live stream. So there's a lot that's within this trend. Now, of course, there is some sort of, I would say stigma, but there's some sort of weirdness that is involved within this trend because the community is calling Jin daddy, and it can either be a sexual thing or that can either be more so that they feel that they're Jin's children. But if we're going to be honest here, either of these things and either of these assumptions would be something that the community might not want Jin to know or hear about. Now, fast forward a little bit, the other BTS members of course had to celebrate with him as well because they want to congratulate him on finishing his service and serving his nation and all that stuff. RM actually made a post and talked about Jin leaving, and this got more attention and people were very shocked about it. RM posted congratulations on the military discharge and then called Jin dad or daddy. People weren't sure exactly which one it was, but people know that the last word was something to do with father or something like that. And a lot of people then assumed that it probably was a bit of a joke towards the community, since the community was making this daddy's home trend. And so people were thinking that it was RM making a joke of that. Now, of course, there's honorifics involved when speaking Korean. So just like we would refer to someone as older as oppa, the members might refer to each other as other things. And this is what I think really happened because a lot of people think that RM might have been aware of the trend that's happening and people were embarrassed by that. However, I think this was just an honorific that he added at the end. Since Jin is older, it would make sense that there would be an honorific there. It's funny that this RM word trended. Now, since the return of Jin from the military, there's definitely been a lot of murmurs here and there about what he's going to do. He is currently the only member that I think hasn't had his solo debut yet. He was working on it, I believe, and then ended up just releasing one song before he went to the military. So there is still this question of, is he going to have a full-length album for everyone to enjoy? And this is a better time than any for him to kind of have a comeback, as when he creates this solo album, we'll start to see all the other members trickle back in, and it just kind of serves as a great bridge to bring everyone back. However, for the album, people were wondering if he would be collaborating with Coldplay, whether that is lyrically or even backing vocals, similar to what they did with The Astronaut. So there's actually been headlines rumoring that the two would actually work together. And these headlines make sense. I think a lot of us wouldn't be surprised if they ended up working together. But a lot of this tells me that there is a chance that this is actually happening. Now, the reason why I say this, and again, this is a theory, this is not true, but whether this is true or not, this isn't really bad information, and this isn't going to hurt any artist, so it doesn't really matter. But my theory is that it's true because these theories kind of come out of nowhere. Like when it's a bit random, this tends to mean that someone from the inside is leaking this information. For example, and not true, this is just random, if I were to tell you that RM and Rose were dating and there was no conversation about this online, no one speculated it, it would just be so random and so odd of a theory. And if people are presenting it as true, and then suddenly all these news sites are covering it, then it could potentially be leaked from the inside. It just means that it's someone, an internal staff, maybe wanted that message to come out and get media attention or whatever it is. In my personal opinion, just because Jin worked with Coldplay to create one song doesn't mean that the future songs are all going to be created with them, and I don't think there even really was this theory that Coldplay might be featured in the album. So it being so random, at least to me, tells me that it could have been by an inside staff, and they just kind of wanted people to talk about it and potentially talk about it not just for media play, but maybe even because it's true. So who knows? I'm very excited when I see stuff like this. It feels like it could happen, and this is great news. I think Chris Martin can help write some songs, and also knowing how Coldplay has created hit after hit in these next few songs that Jin would release for his album would probably be a very big hit here in the US. And then I don't know if Coldplay is still on a tour, but then Coldplay can go on tour and then have Jin appear. And it's just a really good way to be reintroduced to the spotlight. Because as much as the community likes to fight this idea that every single person in the community is a big fan and they would know when he leaves and when he comes back, it's just not simply true. A lot of listeners and a lot of people who download songs are just casual listeners. People often know an artist by just the one song, and they're talking about that one song that's all over the radio. And that one song tends to catapult them into mainstream success. And a lot of people, unless the next song after that is an even bigger hit, they typically don't ever hear of that artist ever, or ever go back to that artist again. And whether that's K-pop, whether that's BTS or whatever, or whether that's Western music, that still applies. That's just how humans interact with music, and that's just how the world works. I also found it really interesting just the conversation around Jin coming back from the military and people expecting the conversation to be bigger. In my opinion, it was big already. All the members pretty much wished him congratulations, and all the community that was following this knew about it, and they even crashed the website when Jin decided to go live. However, it seemed like people were expecting more, like they were expecting all the BTS friends, like the celebrity friends, to be talking and posting about it, and I just don't know how accurate or why people's expectations would be this. Of course, all of BTS's Western friends would care and would be happy to hear that the members are out of the military, or at least one of the members are out of the military, but I just don't think they're going to publicly tweet, and they're not going to publicly do anything. And I probably, in my opinion, wouldn't even expect a phone call from them. In the US, going to the military, it's a big deal, but it's not seen in the same way as it is in Korea. Like, it just seems like a choice that they made. So a lot of people who are friends with BTS, maybe who aren't aware of what's going on and aren't even aware that they have to go to the military, they might just be assuming that that's what the boys want to do. So they kind of see it as just another thing to do. And why would I congratulate someone if that's something that they wanted to do and now they're done? This is, of course, my theory. I don't actually know how they feel about the members coming back from the military. This is just my assumption as to why maybe they haven't said anything. But people were particularly upset about Chris Martin not saying anything. I think this was because Coldplay had shown signs or had done stuff to show Jin, like thank you. I think Chris had performed the astronaut on his tour, and I believe they also had one of Jin's stuffed animals, so I guess people were thinking that he would have made a public statement. The part that irks me a little bit about this was just that it all seemed like people were talking about that they were upset that Chris hadn't made a statement, and there were a lot of people who were wondering why, and then other people that were calling Chris a fake friend. I don't know the relationship between Chris and the rest of BTS or whatever, but in my personal opinion, they probably were just friendly acquaintances. It's really hard to be friends when there's a language barrier. That's why people say it's impossible to have a relationship with someone who doesn't speak the same language as you. You could, but communication is the most important thing in my opinion, and if two people aren't speaking the same language, that's not even the only problem. The problem after that would be the cultural differences that people would share that they wouldn't even know how to express. So I do think the two are acquaintances, and it really wasn't more than that. And so if he doesn't wish him a happy discharge, he might not even know or keep up with it. And that's really it. When Coldplay or Chris honors Jin during a show or whatever, he's doing that for the audience. It's because the audience wants to see that. It's because the audience wants to honor Jin as well. So they want to see this big show. It's not necessarily for the sake of clout. It's just to give the audience what they want. Chris also knows that a lot of people who are coming to his shows now are people who are fans of BTS, so why not honor BTS? But that doesn't mean that the two are best friends. But this is all my theory, could be 100% wrong. I'm curious to hear what you think about this. Let me know what you think. Make sure to check out Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thanks for this little bit comment right here. Love you, bye.